Welcome to my parlor. Hi, I'm Priscilla Andrews with Prairie Parlor, and it's such a beautiful spring day today that I decided I was going to come outside to one of my flower gardens because the tulips and the daffodils are so gorgeous and they're starting to open. It's been kind of late spring, but I was so inspired that I decided to dress up real bright for you guys too. I know that's not what you came here for. So we're going to do a cane that was the idea, I think, in the back of my mind when I came up with this cane was a cane that Meg Newberg did for her people that subscribe to her Patreon tutorials. So a big shout out to Meg Newberg for influencing this scrap cane tutorial. So I hope this helps you deal with some of the scrap clay issues, and my cats are coming to join me, so I hope I don't trip. Anyway, you can use any color and you can skip some of the steps if you want, but no two are going to turn out alike, and I wanted you to know that before we even got started. So welcome again to my parlor. Thanks for coming outside with me on this beautiful spring day, and I hope you have some beautiful flowers to enjoy too. Oh, I forgot to mention that this tutorial is kind of long because I not only showed you how to make the cane, but I gave a lot of tips and explanations of cane making. Skip all of that if you don't want to watch that part. But if you want to know more about how to make your canes successful and pretty, watch the whole thing. So let's go. The supply list is not very long. The main thing that you do need is to pick out, if you're going to do it this way, your scrap clay. If you pick out your clay, you have to make sure that there is very little black in there. None to very little, because if you do, it will just mute or dull your color. Here's a picture of the color I ended up with on the left. On the far right is the same thing without a lot of the black trimmed off. I trimmed some of the black off for that middle piece, but the right piece had none of the black trimmed off. These are the colors that came out. Well, this is the color that was the result of the scrap clay that I blended. It's a nice lavender. I'm working with souffle. There's probably some Kato and some Primo in here too. I just kind of mix whatever I need when I need it. But this is going to be approximately the proportions of the colors I'm going to make for this cane. And that goes with the original color, and then a little bit darker, and even more darker. And then over here, we're going to start going lighter. And then it's always amazing to me what you see is that it takes very little bit of a color to make a very light tone of that. So using these ratios, I am going to mix these colors up and see how they look together. Well, here are my mixed up colors. I decided to go with just 4 for a couple reasons. This was the original color. And the first one I mixed was the darker purple, which was actually this one. And the amount of purple that it took just to get it a little bit darker than this one was so much that I decided to abandon the 5 and went with this one as the second lightest. This is the lightest. A lot of white, just a little bit of the purple. And then this color is actually the souffle royalty purple. No mixing, but that was the base for this one, so I knew it would work for that. So then the next step is to make the strip that is going to be wrapped. You'll be wrapping these colors around. This color I made with the souffle royalty, but I added some navy blue because what colors make purple? It's red and blue. So I added the navy blue to make it a little darker. And to make it even darker, I added some black. So those are the colors I used to make this strip. Now this has been rolled out on the pasta machine, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this out into on the setting number 4, which is about the middle, and then I'm going to take some white back to show you what that looks like. And I'm back with this beautiful dark purple strip. I rolled the purple out on a number 4. The white in the center was rolled out at a number 2, and then the other side is also a number 4. Then I ran the whole thing through the machine on my thickest setting, which is a number 0. And honestly, if you've gotten to this point, that was the hardest part of this whole thing. There is no real rhyme or reason to how you're going to do this, other than I usually start with the lightest color in the center. I like to start out with the lightest color, usually. Don't know why. Usually because that probably ends up being the center. And what I'm going to do here is just take a strip of this light color, and I'm going to set that in here, make it a little bit longer. And I'm not real worried about things being perfectly shaped because it's going to get all squished up when we reduce the cane. But I'm going to start with this right here. I'm going to take that end up. And you never do this the same 2 times. It's just always different with the scrap clay. I'm going to go up here. And I'm going to stop there. So this is going to be pretty much a back and forth work where I now have this wrapped like that. And I'm just wrapping that side, and then I'm going to take another color and put it next to it. What I usually do is I like to put the darker colors next to the lighter colors as we work with this. So I'm going to leave that like that. Make the pieces that you put in here pretty big, because let me show you an example. Here are some other scrap canes that I have made with this very same process. This is an orange one. It was a lot of fun to make. I used brown and copper as accents in this one. And I just want you to notice the size of the pieces that we have in here. And then I didn't reduce the cane a whole lot so that I didn't lose the detail. Here's another one that I made that the sizes, again, are pretty good, and as you see, I have the contrasting colors as closely as possible on that. Now the next one is the one that didn't turn out so great, because number 1, I didn't have enough contrast between the colors. They were pretty close, and the pieces were smaller. It just doesn't give you the same dramatic effect if you use larger pieces, and then you don't have to reduce it as much either to get a real good cane. So with that said and all that put away, let's get back to our purple cane. And I decided to use purple for the tutorial because I happen to have a commission waiting for something purple. And so I wanted to show you that part. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to continue with some shapes and sizes, and that's not real big. So I'm going to take that piece, and I'm going to make a triangle that's going to go there. And again, roughly, just do it by hand. You don't need an extruder or anything else to get the effect that we want to get. I do try to make it as uniform as I can, but just use your hands and eyeball it. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to show you this so you can see it. Where I stopped the outline is right there. So I'm going to take this triangle and put, I'm going to put the point of it down there. No, changed my mind. I'm going to put the bottom of that triangle right where that meets. Why? I don't know. I just have a feeling that that's what's going to look best. I like how the triangle is going to come up right to the top of that one. The same level. Straightening it out. A little space on the bottom there, which is good, so they're not the exact same size. And here we go again. We're just going to do a wrap. I'm pushing it down to get that wrapped clay as tightly against it as I can. And I'm wrapping this one all the way around, which means that now, see, that's how it works. Just going to keep going. Now, on that side, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a little squiggle here. Just for the heck of it. I got the space, I got the length. Oh, I forgot to mention that I usually work with about 12 to 14 inches of this outline. So when you reduce it, or when you run it through the pasta machine, cut the ends off and trim it up, I find that 12 to 14 inches is usually what works the best for me as far as ending up with a decent size cane that's not huge and takes forever to use up. So we've used the darkest and the lightest, and now up against the dark, I'm going to go with the original color, which happens to be our second lightest color. I think I'm going to do another straight piece. That's going to go up there. I'm going to reduce the length or make it a little bit longer, but it's going to be pretty much a square. And I'm almost there. Stretch. Don't you love that clay? Clay is so forgiving. Okay. So what that means is I'm going to have to make another squiggle to get up here, but I'm going to make that squiggle a little lower and shorter than the other one. I don't know if you can see what I mean, but I made that so that I could get up here. And this is where your awl comes in handy. Because if you want those lines to be nice and sharp, you're gonna have to have an awl to push it in those places. Now, I'm gonna push it down there. I'm gonna come up here. And once again, I'm going to use my awl just to get that pressed in there nicely. I forgot, don't drag it. Press it. Don't drag it. I don't know if you saw that. But see, when you drag it, it pulls that clay. And I kind of like to see what I'm doing. Now you can make a decision here. You can keep going back and forth, or like if I have an established point right here where this is pretty tight in there, I can go on this side or this side. It doesn't matter. We've got the freedom to choose. I think I am going to go with my second darkest color now. I think I'm going to put a half circle. Let me get this out of the way. Now I'm just going to try and press down so that one side of that circle is flat. Not a triangle, but a circle. And I'm going to place that right there, kind of nesting in that spot there. I don't know if you can see that. And I'm going to come back around this way. I'm going to tie that in there. I think I need to take my bracelet off. It's scraping on this tile, and it's reminding me of the sound of fingernails on a chalkboard. All right, how are we doing? Now, what it looks like to me is we need a light color. If all the spots are big, there's not a lot of variation. So, once in a while, sneak in a smaller one. But make sure it's always a lighter color, because the darker colors with the darker strip get lost if they're a smaller shape. And now I have a space right here. So as soon as I'm done with this and wrapping that around like that, and I think I'm gonna tuck another one of these of the original purple. And I'm going to come back up here. And I'm going to go around him this time. And see how that looks. I think we're doing good. Now I'm going to put this color here. And I do have more of these on hand if I need them. I just didn't want to fill up my table. And I have an idea. I think I'm going to put this, not real big, but I think I'll put two of them kind of next to each other. Let's tuck one in here. I'm going to bring that around like that as soon as I cut that off. And that. Bringing that around there. And then of the same color, but it's going to go in a different spot. Just a little bit away from that one. And I'm going to bring, before I do that, I'm going to do squiggle. And then I'm going to come around this one, tuck that in with our handy dandy awl right there. But I also need to tuck it down there. Even though those squiggles aren't another piece of clay, we're going to treat them like they are. And I bet you're wondering at this point, like, where's your triangle? How is this going to become a cane? Well, you'll see in just a little bit. Just firming up some of my designs here. And now I'm down here, and I think the lightest color would be a good one to put right there, and I think a triangle shape would work great because I've got this space right here to fill. So let's see how big of a triangle I can get in there. This is going to be a rather shallow but wide triangle. I don't know if you can see that. I kind of squished the sides in because what I see here, what I'd like to do is put that triangle right in there. But I want the triangle in that spot, and I want the sides of it to lay around it. So I've got to make it even shallower. Let's try that. I know the end doesn't give you a very good idea of what it looks like, but I'll show you in just a minute. Make it as even as I can. I'm going to come, you know, that's just not wanting to stay tucked in there. But I'll get it. I'll get it. And then, see, I wanted to kind of fold the clay back there. So it kind of separates. See, there's that wide flat triangle I was talking about. Let's cut it off on this side. There we go. Got to get it pressed down on that side. Now I think we're going to need a dark color there again. This is the second to the darkest color. Right over here. Kind of a squared off triangle there with a square top. Just evening everything out to make sure it's all there. And we are almost done with this part. Got a few more fill-ins to do. So it's like that. Then I am going to bring this down. And you know what? I'm just going to squiggle this closed. Trying to get it folded in on itself at the very beginning. And now I'm just going to roll that down. There. Got a neat little squiggle there. Okay. We are almost ready to make our triangle shape. But what I'd like to do is put some colors in some of these creases so that you have places where your cane joins to make it look more uniform. If you look on here, you'll see that some of these do not have the outline going all the way through them. And here's another one. This blue almost looks like a flying bird. And that will make your pattern more cohesive because the two pieces run together in one unit. So you don't see your six-sided cane as clearly six sides. So that's why we've got some more of this. And I'm going to be tucking not a whole lot of clay, because remember, when you put the cane together, whatever color you use is going to be doubled because it's going to butt up against the next slice of the cane. And what I see here is I think I need something light right there. So usually I just do a little bit, not a lot, just some circles or some round parts or some triangles in just some of the recesses here. They're going to get smushed flat when you reduce it, and that's just fine because then it's going to join the other side when you put it together as a cane. And you want to flatten that a little bit, cut out what's sticking out. And I've got that there. Now, what else I'm going to do, I think I'm going to take this second lightest color here. I'm going to make a kind of a smaller triangle here. See how easy this is? You just sit down and you just start throwing stuff together. And really, it is that easy. If you just pay a little attention to the details that you have, and your color combination, so you don't have too many light colors together. So I've got this triangle here. Cut that end off so you can kind of see better what I'm doing. I'm going to make sure it's pretty even all the way around. And the reason for that is when we reduce this cane, whenever you have more of a color in one place than the other, it will squish differently. So I'm just always trying to make sure that I have the same consistency of my clay when I'm doing my design. Otherwise, it does not reduce evenly. I see I have a lot going on over here as far as we've got a lot of dark. And so somewhere in here, I am going to put a lighter color, probably right there, because get a little distraction from all this dark going on the side. And remember, when you make your six-sided cane, this dark is going to butt up against another dark, and you're just going to have lines there, and just dark lines. And I don't think that's really what you want to do. So I'm just taking a little bit of this lightest color. I'm making a real slim and small triangle, and I'm tucking that in there right where we did that last little squiggle. And that's going to help hold that squiggle together too when we start reducing, because they can tend to become mushed, I guess is one way to put it. So, still working on that one. This one's up here, and it's a triangle, because I was actually thinking of taking my original purple, and I haven't done this before, so we're going to see how this turns out. And I was going to put it next to it without the outline and see what that ends up looking like. Because, hey, if you don't try, you'll never know, right? So I'm going to make an even smaller triangle than that one, because the dark color will dominate if it's about the same size, unless you have a different pattern. Cut the end off on that for you again so you can kind of see what I'm doing. Here's my little triangle, little flat triangle. That's going to go right there. I think that's going to work. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think we're going to need something right here and on this side. Because if we just get something tucked in there to break up that line of dark, I think that will be good enough. And it's going to end up turning into a triangle. It's going to be pushed into that space, so I might as well make it a triangle now. Kind of got to think ahead, like what's going to happen if I do this or don't do that. So that's really going to help break that up. Even though it's right next to the other light color, I think that's still going to work. And I'm still a little concerned about all the dark going on here, but if I make sure that that outline is tucked in there, when this is reduced, that should double back on itself, and that will make an interesting design too. That said, I really feel the need to go in here and put some light in. And I'm thinking, with all that squiggling going on, we just need a little bit of light right there. Might not look like much, but I think you're going to find that it's going to make a difference. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to repeat the same thing on the next one. So we're going to have two little light strips right next to each other. Okay, deep breath, because I think I'm ready to reduce. What do? Well, first of all, I'm just making sure I'm firming everything up so that when I decide what's going to be my 3 points on this, I have all my bases covered as far as it's not really going to matter, because that's what you do now. And I think this is going to be a point, and that's the point I like the best. So that's where I'm going to start. And you just start by squeezing. Everything up here is going to get pushed around and changed. And we're going to end up with a triangle, believe it or not. So let me work on this, and we'll be right back. Okay, I have triangled off what we put together. You ready for the reveal? I think that looks kind of cool. I like it. But we won't know what it's going to look like until we put it together. So before I reduce this out to 6 inches and cut it in 6 parts, I take my handy dandy mirror, which is dirty because I've done this once or twice on here and haven't cleaned it. And I'm going to put those sides together to see what they look like. It's not bad. Not too bad. Ooh, that one's fun. Okay, you know what? I think I'm on the right track. Tiny Pandora has these cane benders. And this is the large, this is the medium size. I'm going to use this cane bender because this kind of bothers me. It's just a long, solid color, and it's the dark purple all the way. And if I just take my cane bender and I'm going to press that in there. Take it out. Get this up. And now I've got a little depression there. And I think I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And what I'm going to do in that depression is put one of our colors in there. So let me make sure this is all straight so that everything stays nice and even. I'm going to grab one of my colors. Let's see, what color should we put there? I think I'll use the medium color, which was our original color that we started off with. And I'm going to just put a circle in there because I just didn't like that long, solid, dark line there. And it's not going to be very big. It doesn't have to be. It's going to get flattened out anyway. It's pretty big, and it's not flat yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut it in half myself and stick it back in there. I didn't like how how much I had. That was too much. I think I'm gonna like this a lot better. And I do. From that side, yep. I can bring that down a little bit there. We got a nice point. And now that I look at the rest of it, I was thinking of putting something over here, right in there, but I don't think I'm going to. I think we're good. All right, I'm going to put my cane caps on, and I am going to go and reduce this, but first, I'm going to let it rest. And what is resting? Well, the cane, as you are manipulating it, it causes friction as those molecules move around. And the more friction that it makes, the softer the cane gets. And then I don't get as nice of a reduction. So I'm going to sit and let this sit. Sometimes you can put it in the refrigerator. But I really want this to just firm up a little bit so it doesn't get very distorted when I reduce it. The other tip I have for you is, as you're reducing, you need to keep an angle so that your 6 pieces will fit in together without you having to manipulate them. So what I did is I just took a piece of scrap paper here, and I cut it into a circle, and I folded it into 6 pieces. So it doesn't matter what size cane you make, because those, whatever cane size you're making, will always have the same angle. And as you can see, I don't know if you can, I'll move that back a little bit. I'm not quite on. So as I reduce it, I will use this as my form to guide me. So if you're like, your cane only has, if it's this big, you can still use this to get your 6 pieces. So that comes in really, really handy. So it's break. Nice day outside. I'm gonna let that cool off. Be back later. All right, I have our cane reduced. This is about as far as I'm gonna go right now. And before I show you a veneer of this cane, I want to show you something neat about making a cane this way with just shades of the same color. Because when you have scrap clay left over, this is the color of the scrap clay that was left over from the parts that I trimmed off of this while I was reducing it. So you've got a nice purple instead of a bunch of different colors. And let me show you too, that blue one that I showed you, there that is. And here's the scrap from that one. Nice blue color. And I'm going to show you that orange one too. Here, this was the shades of, it was souffle mandarin that I used a little bit of copper and some burnt umber with. And that's our leftover scrap clay from that. So you get a pretty good idea that using shades of the same color is going to give you some decent clay to use when you're done. So now I'm going to make a veneer out of this so you can see how that all comes together. Well, here we are at the end. There's our purple cane. And here's a little bit of a veneer that I made with it. Not real big, not real perfect, but you get the idea. I wanted you to see that. Let's bring the others in too. There's that blue one that I did. And the veneer that goes with that one. So if you're looking for a monochromatic cane and you have some scraps, this is a pretty neat way to do it. Here is our mandarin orange monochromatic set. So there you go. Scrap cane used up, and gives you a pretty neat pattern. So if you have any questions, post them in the comments below. And I appreciate your going with me on this journey, because I learn a lot myself as I go. And I appreciate your sticking with me. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it, and good luck.